Hey guys, Matthew here. In this video I'm going to talk to you about meshes. So meshes and NURBS are, I guess, what you would call best of friends. A mesh is effectively everything you see that isn't a curve. So NURBS stands for non-uniform rational B-spline. You don't need to know what that means. You just need to know that that's not the same as the word mesh. So how a NURBS works is it's a lot of cool, crazy equations that allow for curvy things to happen really, really easily. But what the computer has to do to visualize that to the screen is to translate that into a mesh. So everything you see fundamentally from the bottom up is a mesh. But then there's another type of geometry, the mesh, which is literally just that. It's just a mesh. So, which doesn't come as much of a surprise. So when I type box, I get a box as a NURBS object. I can type mesh box and get a box as a mesh object. And you'll notice that there is quite the difference. One, there's no thick lines at the edges of a mesh object. And two, by default it's got a lot more lines on it than this does, namely 0 because it's an extrusion. But if I explode it and join it again, it's like that. It's one on each face. If I click on here, it doesn't have an isocurve density, whereas this does have an isocurve density, because this does not have isocurves. If I explode this, I explode it into its faces, like you would a surface. But it's made up of more than just these faces. It's made up of smaller faces still. So each of these is a mesh, that's fine. And I can type commands like, say for example, extract face. Extract mesh faces. I can click particular ones I want. And then I can delete them, and now there's holes in the mesh. So, whereas before, it doesn't make sense to just select a part and delete a hole on this object. Each of these is their own surface. So if I kind of considered the box was made up of a whole series of smaller surfaces, that's exactly what a mesh is. There are times you have to use meshes, and there's times that you don't. So the best way to look at the difference between these two kinds of objects, and I don't have time to tell you every single tool about meshes, is to join this back up and use a command called mesh to NURB. So that says mesh, I'm just going to change my mesh object to a NURB object. And you'll notice that if I move the original mesh away, that instead of getting one surface, I get a whole bunch of small square surfaces, no matter what, right? So it's true on the bottom, and that's one surface, and it's true on these edges. So the usefulness of meshes is the fact that most modeling software use meshes, and it will talk to everything. So when you start importing and exporting stuff from other software, you will, a lot of the time, be worried about mesh objects. And some mesh softwares don't let you have four-sided faces. Everything needs to be a triangle. So if I selected this and typed triangulate mesh, a lot of the time this has to be what you are presented with. So a lot of software will only read triangulated meshes and not quadrangulated meshes. And you'll notice that in the mesh I can turn points on, unlike the extrusion here, points on. Can't turn that on in that way. But if I select, say, a few points and I move them vertically, the rest of the surface, or the rest of the object doesn't add up and it doesn't move smoothly like before. So generally, meshes are very, very good at doing blocky things, and NURBS are very, very good at doing curvy things. So, and RHINO is not very good with meshes for the most part. There are some moments where you would want to use meshes, and that would be something to talk to your tutor about. But in this instance, it's good to know that this exists. So if you import things, you know how to get from here to here, to then be able to get this to begin to deal with that. But I can't do things like say if I take this surface and type mesh, and what mesh does, it lets me translate it into a mesh. So if I press delete, and I'll delete everything around it, I've got one mesh face here and one surface face here. I can't join those things, right? Meshes and NURBS objects do not talk to each other no matter what. So NURBS will only talk to NURBS and meshes will only talk to meshes. So again, just to cap and to tell you what's important about this, you can import meshes very easily, you can export meshes very easily. You should be working in NURBS. NURBS create better drawings because they are curves to start off with, and they will make it easier for you to work in the long run. They're far more computationally efficient than a lot of form we like to make to actually just hold it in memory. So if you have a mesh come in, you need to turn it into a NURBS object by typing mesh to NURB. And if you want to go the other way, you can just type mesh, and it'll translate that into a mesh for you. And notice how parts of it are triangulated by default. So they don't talk to each other, but you can move between them quite easily. So you should always be using NURBS when you can, but there are times that you'll need to know about meshes. And that's all about meshes. See you in the next video.